Arkansas, the podcast, and I'm your host, Lisa. And this week I have a guest host with me, Matt, and he's a longtime friend. He's a church friend. He's part of my First Security Bank family. Say hello, Matt.
Hello, Lisa.
How is it being on here? Is it weird?
I'm not sure yet. Yeah, it's a little weird.
It's a little weird.
But I'm happy to be here. And happy birthday to Unexplained Arkansas.
Thank you. That is so sweet.
You bet. Yeah, super happy for you.
And your birthday is in about a month.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to celebrate. So.
Sounds good to me.
Are you
Wherever
ready?
you're buying, I'm going.
Okay. Remember this conversation. It's recorded. So. Okay. So just a little business. Merry Christmas to everybody. So it's been an amazing year. We're just very grateful and thankful for everyone that has listened, donated, connected, just all the things. So if you wish to connect with me, please email me at unexplainedarkansas@gmail.com. And also you can message me on Facebook or Instagram. I am on TikTok now, so go check that out. But of course, we're on all the platforms. And especially, I'm really going to be pushing the live show tickets. So we do have the live show coming up in February, and Matt's going to be there, probably.
I'll be there.
You'll be there. And it's going to be awesome, and I want you all there, but I want to make sure that you get tickets. So you can email me for your tickets. Yeah. So, okay, getting serious now. So this episode is number 67, and it's the Christmas Killer. And this is going to be part 1, just because there was so much information. It's a lot. So I'm like,
Sounds heavy.
I know. It is really heavy. It's definitely not warm and fuzzy, but this episode was given to me by Dana G. So thank you, Dana. She has given a lot of good ideas for episodes, and this definitely was something that I didn't even know about, and it's like horrendous. And I can't even believe it happened, but it did. So yeah. So we're going to get into it, and I do want to have a disclaimer. Not necessarily in part 1, but definitely part 2. But part 1 will have some abuse. We're talking just listener discretion. It's going to be some physical abuse, definitely psychological and verbal, but also sexual. So just FYI. So, are you ready to get started?
Sounds like I'm glad I signed up for that.
I know.
That's scary.
I know, it is scary. It really is scary. It is. And I did most of my research with a book, which I will put in my references. But yeah, it is kind of scary. So we're going to get started. I'm going to go, this episode is about Ronald Gene Simmons. And he did go by Gene. So that's what I'm going to call him.
Gene Simmons?
I know.
Kiss?
Isn't that? Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yes. A different Gene Simmons, I guess. So when you Google...
Oh, so we need to say that. We're not talking about...
We are not talking
Gene
about...
Simmons.
Yeah.
The Gene Simmons.
The Gene Simmons.
This is just another guy.
Yeah, when you Google Gene Simmons, you have to put in, Ronald Gene Simmons.
Okay.
Yeah. So, senior, really. This guy was senior. Ended up being a senior. But, yeah. So, he went on a horrible murder spree in 1987. And he is convicted. He's put to death by the state. Just, it happens. And a lot of that's going to be part 2. But we're going to go back to the very beginning, and we're going to fully discuss the whole rotten life of Gene, okay? We're going to start so you can kind of see just how this built up. So
yeah, where he came from. How he got here.
Yes.
Or wherever he was.
Exactly, yes. So, Ronald Gene Simmons was born July 15th of 1940, and he was born in the Chicago Lying-In Hospital. I thought that was weird. In Chicago, Illinois. So, this hospital is named Lying-In, kind of due to the European term of being postpartum confinement. So, that was what they called lying-in.
Lying?
And it's lying, Lying.
Lying down?
Mm-hmm.
Lying in?
Lying in, Lying and then in.
Okay.
Isn't that weird? So that was interesting. So I was like, oh, okay, I had to look that up. And the hospital actually was founded in 1895. Just a little tidbit. So it was a long time, like around for a long time. So Jean's mother's name is Loretta Richardson Simmons, and Loretta had actually been an orphan. She was orphaned at the age of 10, and she was adopted by her mother's sister, Nancy, and then her husband, Nancy's husband, Joseph. Quinn was the last name. And that happened in October of 1919. That sounds weird. She took Quinn's last name. So Loretta, kind of later in life, it said, was very consumed by genealogy. Like, she loved it. I think she would have really liked the whole ancestry thing, because I do. I fall down to think. But I guess that's maybe because she was orphaned. I don't know.
Like,
but
trying
I like
to find her past.
Yeah, I guess that's what I would think. I mean,
a lot of people like that now, though, right? That's a big thing. I think my mom does that.
Does your mom do that? I mean, I like to do it for like this purpose, but it was also like it's just interesting. Like at Thanksgiving, we looked up all sorts of information like about like our families. Like I looked up everybody's family. So it's pretty interesting. So, but Loretta was very interested in it, and this was kind of before the ancestry time, so you had to do like a lot of, work to find stuff out back then. You had to go to the library.
We have a cool library.
We do have a very
Have you been there?
Yes. I've been to the local history room.
I drank coffee there one day with a friend. It was good.
Yeah. Did you go get a book or look at a book?
Oh, no. I don't read.
You don't read?
No.
Okay.
Not for fun.
Okay. I get that.
It's more of a task or chore.
Yeah. That's Daryl. He's not a reader. I think most people, you either are or you aren't.
That sounds bad. I've read some books.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends. Not about stuff like this, for sure.
This isn't, just not true crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This genre and I'm not friends.
Yeah. I like it all. So, I love to read. So, I just love it. But I do love our library. It's really cool. And it's brand new, so you guys should check out the Cersei Library. So, I talked about Loretta and ancestry. So, Loretta was said to be bright. She was sensitive. She was talented. The Quinns couldn't actually have kids of their own, so they were extremely doting on her. So, it sounded like a good deal for her. It sounded like a nice home. So she grew up in Rock Island, Illinois, which is kind of, I think I have notes in here about how far it is from Chicago. But she was said to also be active. She was adored. She was spoiled. She was president of her high school poetry club and French club. You're making a face.
I was going to say, that sounded like my upbringing until you got to the poetry club.
Oh, you weren't. I don't think Cersei had a poetry club.
I wouldn't know.
I don't think. I know they have a French club, which I didn't take French.
I always regretted not taking French.
Mm-hmm.
I took Spanish.
Yeah, me too.
4 years. Shout out to Miss Nielsen.
Me too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Still teaching today, by the way.
She is.
She's amazing.
She is amazing.
But
I have subbed for her.
My last name has French origin, and people ask me all the time, "Hey, are you French?" I can only say yes. I don't know. I'm White Countyan. I'm from Arkansas, so that's as far as I know.
So we're gonna have to do your ancestry search.
I don't know.
I'm gonna do it.
You read these things about what was the one site that got hacked, or maybe they sold all their data.
Oh.
To somebody probably wanting to use it for nefarious purposes. I don't know. I'm kind of a freak about that. I don't think I want to go there.
Well, we don't have to upload your DNA profile. We can just look. I'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah, we can actually look at just records.
Well,
yeah.
There's not many of us around here, so.
Oh, okay. I'll find.
I came from somewhere.
I found a lot of interesting things on my dad and my stepmom's family, and then my brother-in-law's family. We traced them back to when they came over here, their ancestors. So we can find you.
That seems fun.
It's very fun. So that will be a fun night in. Fran can come. We'll look for Fran's peoples. So Loretta, she was just an exceptional student on top of, being the president of the poetry club. She also wrote for the English department's magazine. So she really did, I mean, she was just very, I don't know, connected, very smart, obviously, good student. So in 1926, Loretta did win first place in the silent reading section of the National French Achievement Test. And she was published, like she had an essay published, and it was in this World magazine that was a magazine for high schools all over the country.
How do you win silent reading?
I have no idea. I don't even know.
That was like, do you have to take a test?
I don't know. I'm going to have to look that up. Look that up. Will you Google that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, yeah, just Google silent reading section and what that means. She was a member of the Rock Island Trinity Episcopal Church and a regular in Sunday school at the First Church of Christ Scientist. I don't honestly know what that is, but it did have a note in the book that her parents weren't thrilled with her involvement with this First Church of Christ Scientist, but it did not say anything about why. So I don't know about the doctrine or anything like that.
That's a lot of names for a church.
It is. It's like, yeah. So I don't know. That's interesting too. So after Loretta graduated, which she did graduate in 1926, she did go on to college at the Augustana College. I think I'm saying that right. It is a private Lutheran college in Rock Island. So it was right kind of where she was. And she studied there for a year, and then the following year, she went on to the Iowa State Teacher College in Ames, Iowa. And I think that's Ames. Do you know AMES?
Sounds correct.
Like so, as you know, because you're a banker, the Great Depression, the Great Depression hit right after this time period. So, and it came on early, and it hit the Quinns really hard and kind of turned a lot of their savings to pennies, like overnight. So Loretta had to quit school and come home during this time period. So this probably would have been like right before the crash, like 1928, whatever. So when they came home, they really didn't want her just being a clerk anywhere. So she went to work at the Rock Island Fine Arts Club teaching French and piano. So she did that for a bit, and kind of within a year of that, it said that their financial situation improved. So I guess maybe their loan, whatever savings they had, like kind of, did well. And so the Quinns enrolled her in 1929 in the nursing school at Michigan's Children's Hospital. Again, she's definitely being taken care of. The Quinns definitely cared about her education, and she was obviously really smart. Maybe a bit, like, I don't know, uppity. Like, they weren't going to put her in as a clerk. You know what I'm saying? Like, she wasn't just going to do anything. And maybe they just thought she was so smart that they didn't want her to waste her energies. But that was something interesting to me. So it was like, okay. So, what's your thought? Did you find anything?
Oh, about the silent reading test?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's what you would think.
Okay.
It's like a regular reading test.
Okay.
You read it, and then you answer some questions.
Oh, okay. So
a comprehension thing.
Okay.
It's what you would suspect.
So, yeah.
I just thought it was funny it was called a silent reading. Like, I've never seen, like, an out loud reading test where everybody would be reading out loud. That would be, that actually might be harder.
Anyway. So I'm with you. Okay, so it's just called silent, but really it's like, it's just normal.
Test.
It's just reading.
It's just regular reading.
Okay, that's interesting. So,
nothing fancy.
Loretta, she's smart. She's just clearly brilliant.
Sounds that way.
Yeah, it does. It really does. So
she had a lot of support.
She did. She had a lot
of support.
And that is important. And that makes a big difference for people. So having a support system and having the funding, the support financially to be able to do all these things. So the Quinns definitely poured into her. So this was interesting. So she went off to, the nursing school. So Loretta did not do well. For the first time in her life, like, she did not succeed. She did not feel confident. she felt very isolated. She felt lonely. She felt like she wasn't doing a good job. She didn't feel like she was tough enough for nurse work. She kind of felt like the teachers really didn't like her or feel like she was cut out for it. So after a semester, it did say that she had a nervous breakdown and she had to leave, and she went back home to Rock Island. So, and she did go under the care of doctors for several weeks. And this was around April of 1929. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's sad.
It is sad. And I at this point know a whole lot more about Gene, so I have a lot of thoughts about that.
But it's speculation, right?
Yeah, it's just like looking at his life, because at this point I know like
I wonder
all
if
of this.
she felt pressure.
Yeah, because she had always done so well. Like, she had always done so well. And to me, especially back then in the 20s, like, nurse work would have been, not to say it's not hard now, it's very hard, but like, they were probably doing all the work that like the CNAs do now. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're talking.
Oh,
I
don't know.
All of
Because
it.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I can't.
I can't even be near
blood.
Anything like that.
Can you deal with like?
No.
Like.
I get uneasy.
Yeah, I feel like Loretta.
So are we in Rock Island again? She's getting some treatment.
Okay. Yes. So.
That's like,
we went way off.
That up. It is like 3 hours from Chicago.
Yes, and it's kind of more to. I looked on the map. It was kind of like
straight west.
Little northwest. Is that right? Something. Well, yeah, we are in.
Are you familiar with the compass rose? Are you?
Okay, so we're in Rock Island. She has been sent home. She was under doctor's care, and it's April 1929. So by September of that year, she did resume giving private French and piano lessons, and she was still living at home. But by 1932, so this was like 29, so she kind of stayed home for a couple years. There's kind of just a couple years that she just stayed home. So in 1932 to 33, she did complete a 1-year course at a local business college in Iowa. So she did go back to school for that. And then it says in May of 1934, at the age of 25, she did meet and marry a man named William Henry Simmons. And her parents weren't too pleased. So William was coarse. He worked as an industrial inspector with International Harvester Company. And Loretta got pregnant kind of right away and actually delivered of Gene's oldest brother, whose name was Robert, in 1935. So just kind of right after they got married, a year later, she did have a baby. And then, as shocking as all this is, she divorced William right after that and went and finished her degree at that Augustana graduate, and she graduated in 1937, summa cum laude. So remember, that was the school she went to in Rock Island originally right out of high school. Okay, so now we are in 1937. She literally is divorced, and it's 1937.
Got it.
That's probably something right there. I'm just saying. Like, Loretta just very much seems to be, I don't know, like, just a woman of her, I don't know, just very doing what she wants to do. Because I have a feeling, like, it was not common to get divorced in that time frame.
Yeah, I definitely don't know, but...
Yeah. That's pretty, she's just basically doing what she needs to do. But it is interesting that she even married, because it said that her parents were not happy, and they just did not feel, I don't know, they did not feel that William fit Loretta's personality.
But, so kind of back to her original
Mm-hmm.
exploits in college.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like maybe these expectations were there that she just either couldn't or just didn't meet, whether they were unrealistic or not.
Yeah, like with the nursing situation.
Yeah. So I feel bad for her.
Yeah, and I feel like, well, maybe, I mean, she was just young. So I feel like, it feels like she did go back home and she got the opportunity to finish what she started with the school. So she did get to graduate. So that's nice. I mean, basically, like, this would have been, I mean, quite a bit later, like 7 or 8 years after she initially, because actually more than that, because she graduated high school in 1926, and so she did not graduate college until 1937. Okay.
Wow.
So yeah, she had a marriage and a baby, and
moved back and changed.
Yeah. So a lot happened to her during that time, but it's kind of, I don't know, it says a lot about her. I mean, she was obviously ambitious, even though she kind of maybe hit a roadblock and had some, kind of a timeout period for a couple years after the whole nursing school situation. So it's just interesting. This is even more shocking. So as shocking as her initial marriage and then divorce was, and again, we're talking the 1930s, another shock came to kind of everybody, I guess, in Loretta's family when she remarried William in 1939.
Oh.
Yes.
Remarried.
Okay.
Well, I mean.
Yeah.
That may have been.
I mean, it's interesting, and it shocked her family. So.
His family not loving her decisions.
They didn't.
Do we know this guy?
I don't. Well, it says that all that was written about William was that he was coarse. Coarse. That's
a description for hair, right?
It is. It is. That's interesting. Yeah, but they said that he was coarse. So
what else do you know that's described as coarse? Can you think of another application that you would say, "Oh, that's coarse"?
No. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's the English language. I mean, of course, course, nice. And then course. You run on a course. You do obstacle course. Yeah, and you can take. There are a lot of definitions of course, but look up. Yeah, look up. Because in the 1930s, I think they're saying like he was maybe brash, like unrefined, like I think she was kind of, again, I'm not calling them snobby or uppity, but I think that they liked a certain way of doing things. So, okay, so his job, he was still with that industrial, he was still doing the industrial inspection. So his job moved them, so she moved with them, from Rock Island, into Chicago. And it is 169 miles, like you said. It's a good 3-hour trip.
Oh, hang on.
Okay.
Some definitions, of course, as used as an adjective, rough, which you and I would know. So rough. But unrefined. Unrefined, yeah. Or inferior.
Ugh. So they're calling him.
So I'm curious. Was he just rough around the edges?
Maybe.
Not their kind of guy? Not their cup of tea? Hasn't everything seemed inferior for her? Like everything, they're wanted her to do at this certain school, wanted her to do well here. You used the term uppity, you said that put her on a pedestal.
Yes.
So pretty much, mom and dad wanted her to be this thing or this person that just doesn't seem like it was her.
Yeah.
And even this guy, so I wonder what role they played in the first, in the divorce, even.
Yeah.
If he's inferior.
Maybe they pushed it.
Maybe he was just a good guy.
Yeah. Or maybe it's
a decent guy, or just he tried hard, but it just didn't work out.
Or maybe it's like a situation in where no one's good enough for her.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, could she ever have met the expectation?
Maybe. Yeah. Or anyone be good enough for her. Because sometimes you think your own child is, well, he's not good enough for her. You know what I'm saying? I have a daughter. It's like...
You do?
I do.
I did not know. I was not aware.
You didn't know about
She left a minute ago, though.
Yeah, she
was
did.
Here.
She did.
She didn't want to hang out.
She did not. So that's interesting. It is interesting that it's like inferior, because I really didn't know that definition.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
I wouldn't have thought that either.
Mm-hmm. But that's probably where that description came from them, I would think. So they moved to Chicago, and then so she remarries right away. She does get pregnant with their second son. So Gene is born. So this is our Gene. He is born July 15th of 1940. And it is remarked that he was 6 weeks premature. Kind of right off the bat, he had a lot of illness. And I don't know if that was related to him being premature or if something, I don't know. It does not say anything more than that. But it did say that he was ill a lot. And by the time he was 2, in 1942, his mom had another child. So this time it was a girl, and her name was Nancy. And then it says, like, she already had his older brother, and then, which was Robert, I believe. So you had Robert, Gene, and Nancy. And then by the end of that year, so in 1942, by the end of it, William died. His dad dies. So William dies on the job, like working, of a massive coronary thrombosis. So he had a massive heart attack. Mm-hmm. So now Loretta is 34. She is widowed, and she has 3 kids. 3 small kids. And that, I don't know. That's a lot. She's had it tough. She's had a lot going on. And, to be 34. So, naturally, like we've seen kind of a trend, she does go back home. She goes to Rock Island. And wow, yeah. So, I really feel for her. Because I can't imagine.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. Anywho, so.
And having to go home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I keep going back to these parents.
You think these parents? I think that they loved her.
I'm sure they loved her.
Well, it said that they doted on her.
Maybe it's just the way I took what you said.
Yeah.
I just kind of felt like it seemed like.
I think she was pampered.
Maybe a lot of pressure.
No, I think she was loved. I think she put a lot of pressure on herself, and I think the nursing school did not sit well with her.
I hate to even speculate. That's not even right. Yeah. We don't know.
Well, we don't know. We don't know everything. And I will say, a lot of this information from this book, they did an awesome job, and all of it came from, like, first-hand letters and journals. Oh. So I will say that, or from actual family members. So a lot of the information was, straight from everyone about it. So now Loretta's home, Rock Island. So Loretta went to work in the office of the War Department, and she met her future husband that she would actually be with until the very end, and his name is William. Again, William. I know, this is interesting. So William Davenport Griffin is his name, and he is a civil engineer, and he's 15 years older than Loretta, and they get married in 1943. So this would have happened, pretty quickly. Does that make sense? Because, Nancy was born in 42, and that same year at the end, William dies. So she is remarried by 43. Dad Griffin is what Gene would always call William Griffin, his stepdad, and that's what I'm going to call him through this, just to keep it, so Dad Griffin is his stepdad.
So Gene would have been about 3-ish.
Yes.
So he was tiny.
He would not.
He knew this as Dad.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. And he did not have any memory of his father. Isn't that sad? That is sad. So, I don't have much feelings for Gene, but anyway, that is sad.
Oh, well.
I have feelings for little Gene.
I haven't heard anything yet, so I'm not sure.
You won't.
I know that I shouldn't feel good about it.
You will not. Anywho, but yeah, so Dad Griffin is what Gene called him, and Dad Griffin was educated. He was loving. He loved to paint. And again, he's he's a civil engineer. He has a good job. He was diligent. He was decent. They said that he was fastidious. So that was an interesting adjective.
I always like that word.
Fastidious. He was steady, sober, and affectionate as well. These were really, I like Dad Griffin based on this. And based on everything else I know already, I do like Dad Griffin. But he was said to be a much better match for Loretta than her first husband. So Loretta and Dad Griffin, they get married in 1943. And then together they have a little baby boy that's named Peter. Peter Griffin.
Peter Griffin.
I know. I was like, I have a little note here. Make a Family Guy comment.
Shut up.
Me and Matt both like Family Guy.
Peter Griffin.
I won't. And this is in 1945. Way before Family Guy. I'm just going to laugh there. So, anywho, if you know Family Guy, you'll get this. Okay, so she literally has Peter. Right after this, in the next year, in 1946, Loretta delivers twin boys. And they both come early, and they both die within hours of being born. So another tragedy for Loretta. I mean, she's gone through a lot. A lot. So that was sad.
Labor. I mean, that's...
Yeah, she had 5 pregnancies.
Sounds tough.
It sounds very tough. I did it once.
I've never physically done it.
So poor Loretta. So in 1946, Dad Griffin actually requested and received a transfer to Little Rock. So they're living in Rock Island area, which is where they met. So he was working for the Army Corps of Engineers, and he requests to be moved to Little Rock. It does not say why. I don't know if he had family or whatever, but he does request to move. So he's going to work in Little Rock. He moves the family to a little community called Hector. And so it's about 80 miles northwest of Little Rock. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's a commute for him. So he's commuting to work. In fact, it said that during the week, he just kind of stayed in Little Rock, and then he would come home on the weekends. So he'd be gone during the week.
Wow.
I know. But this place, so it's kind of at the beginning, like Hector's kind of where the Ozarks kind of begin. It looks like it's really west of here, like where we live, but it's very pretty. It's a very pretty country.
It's on the edge of the National Forest.
Yes. So
kind of north of Russellville.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Gene, so this is 1946. Gene is like 5 or 6, and he will remember this for the rest of his life. Like, he absolutely loved Hector. Like, he loved where they lived. He loved the time they spent there. Like, they had a garden and, some acreage. Like, he would think about this and aspire to get back to Hector for the rest of his life. Like, that would be his end goal.
I would assume it's a very pretty area.
I would think so. I mean, all of that, all that I have seen.
Remote.
Remote. Yeah. But that was the epitome. And so anyway, but he enjoyed it. Like, he absolutely loved it and had very fond memories. So in 1950, Dad Griffin actually moves the family closer to Little Rock to the community of Landmark, which is about 10-15 miles south of Little Rock. So Gene, this is just a description of him. He was said, and this is by Pete, his younger brother, would, be noting this later on, that Gene was very a mean kid. And of course, this is from his younger brother, but still. So he did say he always wanted to be right. He always had to be the boss. He couldn't stand for anyone to question him, and things had to be his way. Like, he did not like things to not be his way. Gene did struggle in school. Like, he was not the straight A student. He did struggle. And he struggled at home. So Gene, growing up, could not be controlled or disciplined by his parents. Like, they I mean, it was just like nothing worked with him. No discipline, no spankings, no nothing. Like nothing worked. During this time, so Loretta started to have health issues. And Jean was a struggle. Like she just had too much, like she could not deal with Jean. And this was like the fall of 1953, and Jean was about 13. And they sent him, you'll find this very interesting, and I found it very interesting. They sent him to the Morris Academy in Searcy.
What?
Yes.
The Morris.
And we're talking 53.
Oh.
The Morris School for Boys.
Road. That place?
That place.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've driven out there, and of course.
Matthew, did you not listen to my episode on the Morris School?
Yeah, but like, but I'm talking about personally.
Yes, I know.
And have heard those things. Like, I'm sure I heard some fantastic, unreal things that aren't true, but.
Oh, yeah.
That was always a place that was like, don't go out there. Or go out there. When you're older.
But it would have been abandoned by the time you were a teenager. So.
Hang on a minute. So go back.
Okay, going back.
He came here.
Yes, Gene. He was 13, and his parents. So they are living outside of Little Rock. So they can't get a handle on him.
So they send him to Searcy.
They sent him to this Morris Academy, a school for boys. And we did, so I mentioned, so we do have a whole episode on this. It's episode number 36. Go listen because it's very interesting. But basically the Morris School is an all-boys Catholic boarding school. And some of the kids, I mean, there were lots of different reasons for some of the kids being sent there. Sometimes it was just like, this is what they did. They were Catholic, like they always, their dad went there, their brothers went there. Or they went there because of behavioral issues, like Gene. So, he was a problem.
I don't know anything about this.
Okay. About Morris School.
I've already heard. No, just this story.
Oh, yeah.
This didn't happen here, did it?
No. In Searcy? No.
Okay.
No. So, Gene, he hated it.
No way. Shocker.
I mean, he hated it.
You mean it didn't go his way?
It did not go his way. It was not part of his plan. So he hated being sent away, and of course he started to manipulate his parents into bringing him back home. So by Thanksgiving, he was back home, living at home. They did enroll him at the Fuller Junior High School located in the community of Sweet Home, which is very near this landmark area. So
I've heard that on the news when there's bad weather.
Oh, Sweet Home.
Todd Jacobian or Barry Brandt says Sweet Home sometimes. Yeah. Side note, did you know that Sirloin's Inn is reopening?
I did see that.
It's a steakhouse.
North Little Rock?
Yeah, I think it's on JFK. Okay. I went when I was a kid. Like that was like a birthday spot for, I can't remember which birthday, but it was apparently an important one.
Was it when you were 13? So he was enrolled, Sweet Home, and his time at Morris School did appear to help him straighten out a bit to his family, but it kind of didn't last long. It was kind of like, yeah. So in 1954, Dad Griffin, by this time he was 55, and he was battling acute allergies and asthma. Loretta, like I said, she had already been battling a lot of things. She had arthritis, colitis, she had angina pectoris, which I did have to look some of these things up. She had hardened arteries, and she had cervical cancer. So she had a lot going on. So she had a lot of issues, and a lot of health issues. They're going through this. Gene's behavior, of course, did not help his parents out in any type of way. He was very prone to being surly. I mean, he's a teenager on top of it. Surly. It says surly, like, yeah. He had angry outbursts, of course, when he didn't get his way. Yeah, and he would threaten them, like he physically started threatening them. So they could not. I know, they could not deal. Like, he was not scared of them at all. Like, he just knew he could get away with anything with them. And Dad Griffin was really, I mean, he was just a nice guy. Anyway.
Sounds like it.
I know. So in September of 1955, Gene was 15, and they sent him back to Moore School.
Oh.
Yeah. So this time they made him stay a whole year. They sent him in September.
He's 15.
He was 15 at this point.
Oh, I can't.
I know, but if you're, I can't imagine having to do that. I can't imagine being 15 and having to be sent away, but I also can't imagine being his parents and being like, what do we do? Like, what do we do?
Right. I have no solution.
Yeah. Like,
It's in scenario.
Yes. Like, definitely. Like, I can't imagine it for them or him.
Fearing for their other children, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah.
Themselves?
He was a problem. They could not control him. Kind of during this time, he's here in Searcy, Gene is. In the meantime, due to Dad Griffin's inability to live in the pollen-rich Arkansas region, and I can definitely attest to that, I have horrible allergies.
I didn't want to make a joke about it.
My allergies?
No, not yours, but just somebody
in general.
With
asthma.
Loretta, she had allergy issues, right?
Oh, him. Dad Griffin.
Okay.
Loretta had everything else.
I thought she had allergies too.
Mm-mm.
Probably did, though.
Probably. On top of everything.
And that's bad here.
It is. It's horrible. I have a tougher time in the fall with, like, the ragweed. So, he upped and moved the family to Albuquerque, New Mexico.
What?
Yes. So, he left Gene to finish the semester, and Gene joined the family in New Mexico in 1956.
So, they left.
They left.
To stay with him, with Gene
in
and
Searcy.
And said, hey, we're out of here. We'll see you when you get out.
Yes, and I kind of feel like, I don't know about you, obviously, it's a different time and place. This was 1956.
Well, sure.
But, yeah, they left. They were like, okay. Because I'm sure Dad Griffin got a transfer and went.
Oh, so
like he
work
just
related.
Work, yeah, he was still working. He was working, yes. So, they moved. They were gone. So, after having been at Morris School the year, so he did come back to the family, very polite, very subdued, but, like before, it kind of only lasted a little bit until he was slipping back into his angry ways.
Backsliding in Searcy.
Oh, yeah. And he, and then, of course, he's mad at them for sending him away. And he would throw it in their face and talk about how they didn't love him or care for him. He just felt like, anyway. And so it said that he spent a lot of time in his room. So, and I think that's a teenager thing, too. I don't know. I spent a lot of time in my room.
Yeah, it seems.
So he was, so he's back. He's slipping back into his old Gene self. A little side note on Gene. So, and this was in the book, and this is kind of interesting, but growing up in this family of people with, like, the bronchial issues and, like, Dad Griffin's situation. So, Gene never smoked. Like, never. This is the 50s. Everybody smoked. Like, smoking was everywhere. Even into, like, the 70s and 80s, people, even when I went off to college, people were smoking all over the place. Like, this is a little creepy side note. I really loved candy cigarettes, though.
Those were the ones that look like a Lucky Strike pack, the big circle on it, and you could, like, blow the little sugar powdery thing out. Yeah. We did that a lot down at the corner store.
Well, Gene never smoked. He was super afraid of smoke and bad air in general.
I'm anxious to hear why this is important.
It just, I don't know, it just kind of goes with him.
I was thinking maybe
it's just kind of a little side note. But he would, like, this was interesting to me. So he would constantly clear his throat, like have this throat clearing thing the rest of his life. It was almost like he was scared of choking. So it was like an unconscious, just always clearing his throat. And he would, like, later in life, like, he would post, like, in his home, do not smoke. Like, in his home. Like, on his porch. Like.
So, clearly, he's mentally unstable, for sure. At least. At some level. And towards the end, for sure.
Yeah.
We don't know yet. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Yeah. Definitely
so
had
he didn't have a physical ailment that caused this, maybe.
No, he just...
And I grew up around it?
Yeah, I think he grew up... I think a lot of... a lot of things that he was around, like, how things affect you, that your parents do, that you do unconsciously.
No, please tell me more.
You do. You sound just like your dad. You look like your mom a lot, but you sound much like your dad. What?
Nothing.
Your dad's precious, and your mom is too. Anyway, but you have those little, like, I know I have some things that my mom did, and I'm like, why do I do that? Oh, because she did it. So it's almost like he, like, and again, it said Dad Griffin was fastidious. And that was one of those things.
Here's the deal, I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
If someone said that me, Matt, if they described me as fastidious. I would be overjoyed. That's clean. That's accurate. That's you've got it together.
Well,
and a little bit, but maybe a little bit anal about it.
So in 1957, Dad Griffin moved the family another 3 times. I mean, we're talking...
All right, we need to talk about this.
I know.
I was okay with everything. Like, moving to Little Rock, probably a good idea. Hector didn't understand. That's a long commute.
Yeah.
Out to Albuquerque. Like, I'm sure people back then didn't even have a clue what that even was. This is a place, Albuquerque.
Yeah.
But now he's moved 3 more times.
Yes.
And how many months or years?
So, I mean, literally within that year, because it said that in a year.
That's a lot.
Yes.
Moving once in 10 years is enough for me.
Yes, and we're talking... Gene had to go to 3 different high schools.
And they bailed on him in Arkansas.
They left.
I mean, I gotta think he had something wrong with him anyway, but surely, I'm not blaming anybody, but
this would have contributed to... So, 3 different high schools. That's a lot. So he, because of all this, he didn't end up graduating. I mean, between all these, the moves were very hard on him.
Put out with it.
Yeah, I mean...
I want to try again.
He couldn't, he was awkward. He didn't make friends.
I understand that.
He just, So it caused a lot of isolation for him, and he was angry. He would be angry with his family about this situation. So he did try working. So he did get a job at a golf club, and he never said what happened. It was a golf club, it had a restaurant. This was like his first job. He did come home one evening, and he was like covered in food. Like something obviously happened to him at work, but
at the golf club?
At I guess the restaurant that he worked at.
Is the restaurant at the golf club? That's immaterial, but
yeah. But he he absolutely hated being ridiculed. So his family felt like something happened. He never discussed it, and he never returned back to work. Like, he was like, nope, I'm never going back. Like, he never talked about it. He never went back. He was done. So.
And how old would he be here?
So he was born in 40. So he is about to be 17, and we'll talk about what happens next for him. So, luckily for the family, and kind of, just because things weren't going so well in the household, and Loretta was literally going through treatments for her cervical cancer. So, Gene decided to enter the Navy, and this was September of 1957. So, he literally would have he turned 17 in July. That was the earliest he could go. He absolutely thrived. So, upon finishing boot camp, he was done with boot camp by November, Gene was sent to Guam as a clerk. And there he enrolled in GED courses. And by May of 58, he easily passed and earned his diploma. So he got his diploma. I know. So he also took courses in photography, personal administration, typing, and Navy mail. So, and it said that he followed orders to a T. Like, he was super fastidious with that kind of thing. He was prompt. He was efficient. Yeah, he was killing it. He grew an inch also during this time. So, men can grow.
I'm jealous.
Oh. Did you grow after high school?
I don't think so.
Like you were done in high school?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Because some men are done and some are men can grow up to 26 years of age. I grew after high school. Women are
26?
women are typically done by the time they're 18, and I grew 2 inches after high school. Isn't that weird? And I graduated high school as an 18-year-old because I was an older.
Huh.
I had a fall birthday. So yeah, I grew after 18, which is really weird for a girl.
Yeah, I don't think I did.
But yeah. So he grew, in fact it said, so he grew, he kind of filled out, he actually was very handsome during this time. And the Navy used his image, pictures of him, for their personal pamphlets and such, since he kind of very much, looked the part. He was everything they wanted their Navy men to look like, I guess. So, despite his good looks, he was socially awkward.
Have it all.
I know. Yeah. So here's the drawback. So, kind of his time, being sent to more school, being in all these different high schools, he did not have it socially. He did not know how to talk to girls. He had never really had a girlfriend, nothing. He did dream, his big dream was getting married and having children. He wanted a family. And he wanted to move that family to Arkansas. That was his dream. He wanted to live in Hector on a farm with his family.
At a pivotal time in his life, and it's a beautiful place, probably.
And it just was ingrained. Yes. So, yeah. So, in order to kind of be a little social, and he did grow to like beer, it said. So, he would hang out at some of the USO dances. And there, I know, and there he met a young woman, a young girl, really, named Rebecca Ulibarri. I think it's Ulibarri. So she went by Becky. So Becky was from Colorado. She had actually come over to, and this was where they're at now, so Bremerton. She had come with her older sister, Viola, whose husband, Roger, was also in the Navy. So that's a lot of information. But Becky was born Bersabe Rebecca Ulibarri, and it said that she maybe has a little bit of maybe American Indian in her or something. She was born in New Mexico, and she was the youngest of 5 children. And it said, almost right away, after she was born, her father abandoned the family. And her mom, May, after that, she met and married a man named Andy Novak. So Andy would have been her stepfather. And he moved the family to a 400-acre ranch out of Walsenburg, Colorado. And May and Andy would then, so May already had 5 kids, okay? So May and Andy had 2 more kids. And Andy really made the Ulibarri kids feel the difference between being May's kids before him and then the 2 with him. So he very much treated Becky and all the kids like stepkids. So that stinks because that just stinks. Gene had a really good stepdad, but Becky did not. So Becky's mom, May, is said to be super tough, very savvy. She built the ranch's cattle herd. She raised poultry. She had pigs. She did a garden. She did, like, all the things for this, 7 kids. And I don't know the ages. I don't know if they were still, obviously, I don't know if all of them were living there at once. But it said that May kind of ran the family, ran the ranch. And especially when Andy was out of work, because he would do, like, coal mine work, but it was really seasonal, I guess. So he was kind of in and out of doing that. So it said that Becky was super petite, very girlish, pin neat, like very neat. And she didn't ever feel connected to ranch living. Like, she just wasn't a ranch lady. I can identify that way too. So,
Thanks.
Us and Becky, yeah. So it said that Becky was very popular in school. She was outgoing, but that she didn't really stand out for. It's not like she stood out for something. Like, everyone just assumed that she would be a wife one day. Like, that was kind of like, she was a nice girl. She was really nice, but it was like, she's going to be married. That was kind of the thought. So in November of 1959, so now we're in 1959, so Roger was transferred to the Great Lake Naval Training Center in North Chicago. So, all of them are out here at this Bremerton, which I didn't look up where Bremerton was. Will you look that up real fast?
Sure.
Bremerton. This would have been the Navy. So they're going to be, I'm assuming they are in California or somewhere because it's the Navy. But he gets transferred to Chicago. So,
are you sure it's not, like, in Washington?
Bremerton? It could be Washington State. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it really didn't say where, because it said he was sent to Guam, and then I guess he was stationed in Bremerton, which is where he met Becky. And Becky was there with her sister. So,
yeah, I think.
So they're in Washington, and Becky's going with her sister and her family to Chicago to kind of help them with the move. So then Becky goes on to Minnesota to help her sister Tilly with a new baby. So kind of between 59 and 60, Becky and Gene are keeping up like a written correspondence. So although they had only met a month or so before she, moved, they both kind of fell hard for each other. So they were both pretty smitten. And they were corresponding. Becky really liked his authority, his attention. She just adored him. Like, yeah. And he loved being loved.
Yeah, I'm into that.
Yeah, he really needed that adoration and needed that, so that was perfect for him. So in July of 1960, they were married, and they got married in Raton, New Mexico, so probably near where her parents are.
Yeah.
So in the picture, it said that they are beaming, like they are very happy. The marriage really surprised Gene's family, who hadn't met Becky yet, because it kind of all happened pretty quickly. But, like, he took Becky to Dad Griffin and home, to his mom Loretta. And immediately Dad Griffin connected with Becky. They really, liked her. And then the good thing about Becky is, so she brought out the best in Gene. So he was very happy. He was affable, affectionate, outgoing, confident. Like, she just really brought out the best in Gene.
Yeah.
So his family was like, hey, this is a different guy. This is a more grown up version and nicer version. So everything was awesome. So in January of 1961, Gene is offered to, I guess he offered to extend his tour of duty if he could stay at Bremerton. So Becky was already pregnant and due in July of 60. This would have been 61. So Gene thought about a re-enlistment with the Navy, but then he ended up like opting for a 1-year extension. But they ended up being like they placed him on a ship. So he actually had to go on a ship for an order, and it was the USS Enrico. So he didn't actually have to leave on the ship, like the orders weren't, until August. So he was home when Ronald Gene Jr. was born. So and they would call him Little Gene. And his birthday is literally July 15th, like his father's.
Same.
That's kind of crazy, huh?
Cancer.
What? Are they cancers?
Cancer.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So, isn't that interesting? So,
yeah.
Yeah. That's just, and there's more to this because that will come up again. But anyway, Gene, Big Gene, set up Becky and Little Gene with her family while he was gone. So he was going to be gone on this tour. So by the following May, Gene was back home. So now we're 1962, and Gene was released from the Navy. So he's done with the Navy. He went and took a job with Bank of America in San Francisco.
Uh-oh.
Yes. So at first, he really liked this job, and he really dreamt of advancing and staying with the bank. Like, he was all into it. However, he found it really difficult world in the civil world and outside the Navy's kind of regimentalness. And he really had thrived in that other environment. So he really didn't like being judged more for who he was instead of being judged for just his work alone. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So he was not loving it. So by January of 1963, he enlisted in the Air Force. He decided against the Navy just because he didn't want to go back on a ship again. He did not like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think I could ever get on one, period.
Mm-hmm. He entered the Air Force. So he would be stationed in March of 63. So they sent him to the Langley Air Force Base in Virginia.
Oh.
And Becky is pregnant again, and she is due in October of 63. So Gene, he was sent to be in charge of the quarters of the visiting officers. So he was in charge. Basically, it's kind of like the hotel where the visiting officers would stay, and he was in charge of running it. And and he did a great job. So Becky loved being there. So her sister Viola, remember her with Roger?
Yeah.
So they were actually stationed, he's in the Navy, so they were stationed at Norfolk, right there.
Don't they say it different?
Norfolk?
I don't think that's how they say it.
I don't know. I don't know.
Is it?
Do you want to?
Is that Norfolk?
I mean, it's spelt Norfolk.
I don't know.
Phone us. Phone us in, people. So Becky loved it. She, her sister's there. So Roger, is there. He's stationed there at Norfolk, if it's called that. And so when Roger was out at sea, she got to spend a lot of time with, her sister. But when he was back home, they would all hang out together, like all of them. Now, Roger felt like Gene was weird, but him and Viola, they really didn't have any complaints about Gene. I mean, there was nothing.
Just something not right.
Just something not right.
Something going on.
Yes. Like, Gene didn't smoke. He didn't drink too much. He was very involved and loving with his children. Like, there was no red flags, but he just felt, he was odd. Like, it was like, had a feeling. Now, Roger did say as they spent more time with Gene, he did notice that Gene was one of those people that kind of wanted to know more than anyone else, like thought he knew everything. But if you appeared to know more about something, like he would be very resentful and kind of like miffed by it. Like, just kind of going back to his childhood, like, just really kind of one-uppity, but then also would get kind of prickly if you knew more about something than he did. So prickly. So the cracks were starting to show a little bit, but I will say Becky was really happy. She was happy during this time. I will say Gene controlled his home just like he would control his work. So this was kind of weird to me, but this was something he would always do. He never allowed them to have a home phone. Like, never. Like, they would never have a home phone line.
Why? Did you see anything that explained that?
No, he did not. He just felt like it was not something that was worth paying for, that they didn't need it, that there was no reason for people to call. I don't even understand that.
There's times I feel that way now. So.
I mean, well, we live and die by our phones now, but not for the phone purpose. Sometimes. But he would also control the mail. So he would get a post office box. So he would control receiving and sending mail. He also controlled the money. Like, he always divvied out to Becky, like, here's a stipend, and here's exactly how much you're going to spend on groceries, blah, blah. And he kind of kept her short of cash. Like, her sister Viola just figured it was just to kind of keep hand in it, like, so she would have to come to him and kind of beg for more money. And we're talking, like, for groceries, to feed his kids, you know? I don't understand that. Like, it was just a very control thing. Something he would also do is he would make fun of Becky in front of other people. Like, he would kind of degrade her, and I hate that.
That's poor.
Yeah, he would make fun of her grammar. He would just degrade her a bit. Now, and I will say, he also, like, Becky never learned to drive. So she was 100%, like, dependent on Gene. Now, I will say, Becky at this time, like, and I don't know if it's because of abandonment issues. Again, we don't know. Like, she never really had a father figure. That Andy Novak stepdad, he was not good to her. She loved that. She always said, Gene takes care of us. Like, she loved that he provided for the family and took care of them. And she adored him, like, absolutely adored him, and called him her Gene. Like, oh, he's my Gene. So she was incredibly loving and doting and awesome to him and her kids. Like, that's just what she did. He was good to her sometimes. Like, he was kind of, you never kind of knew which Gene you would get, because he did have he definitely wasn't mean to her all the time. I don't know. So Becky delivers a baby girl named Sheila in October 1963. And Sheila was very favored by Gene.
This does not sound good.
Gene was very all about Sheila from the very beginning. And I don't know if it was just because she was a little girl or whatever, but he was very, he was a little bit hard on his sons, but like, kind of like expecting a lot out of them, but he was very sweet and doting with Sheila. So he was also good to Viola, Becky's sister, it says. Like, he really, and this is why this is kind of funny to me, he really loved her cooking.
Viola was a good cook.
Yes. Like, evidently she made these Mexican Anglo dinners, like these kind of New Mexico dinners that he really liked, and he really enjoyed her cooking. And she would, like, invite them over and cook these big meals, and he just loved it. So he really liked her cooking. So, okay, so after this, so Gene was still doing really great in service. Like, he was promoted to E4 ranking in 1964. And the only area he didn't receive high marks in was getting along with others.
Oh.
Yeah. So he was on top of everything else. I don't think that
box on the eval form.
Probably, and he didn't. That was the only place he didn't get high marks.
Doesn't play well with others.
Doesn't play well with others. So he did take on a second job during this time as a security officer to just make more money for the family. And again, Becky was always super impressed on him being a provider. It was always like, oh, he provides for us. He takes care of us, So, and he also controlled the money and divvied out very little. So on January 25th, 1965, so William Simmons was born. So this is their second son, third child. They would call him Billy. And Billy is said to be an incredibly sweet baby. He would grow into a very sweet man, and it was said he was industrious and likable. So he was just a very, very good kid. So Gene was very ambitious, so he thought that he would be better suited for the Office of Special Investigations within the Air Force. So he went after that. So by January of 1966, he was transferred, and I'll call it the OSI office, and he was promoted to staff sergeant, which was an E5 ranking. So Becky was super proud of Gene. This was, when she's writing, I mean, she doesn't have a phone. So she's writing letters to all of her family, and of course she's, talking about Gene and how awesome he's doing and blah, blah. So she had written to so Viola, her sister, was no longer at Norfolk, so they were transferred. Navy people, I guess all of these military people, they just go wherever. That would be hard to do, especially with families. But, so she was just all about it, and Gene was going to do, he went to do a 1-year-long NCO schooling. So NCO just means non-commissioned officer school, and it just is schooling to make them more, I guess, preparing them for more responsibility. So it's just training. So he did complete that. Despite the advancements, Gene kept Becky on a tight budget. So he moved the family into the Air Base trailer park to save money. So he was like, well, we're going to save money. He scrimped and saved. So kind of no matter what, Becky really didn't have any complaints. I mean, she was just full on whatever Gene wanted. She did. She did not question him. Okay? Yeah. So little Gene seemed well adjusted, and he started kindergarten, so things were going well. And because of the saving and scrimping Gene did, he did splurge on a brand new Dodge Sportsman van. So this would have been in 1966. If you want to look up whatever that looks like.
66 Dodge Sportsman van.
Sportsman
Forgive
van.
me, that wasn't on my list of
cool cars.
Cool cars.
Yeah.
Dream about.
Yeah, and Gene was super excited about this because he said he could not wait to take the family to Becky's mom's place and show it off. He was very proud of this purchase. So, in 1966, Vietnam was on kind of the horizon. It was kind of in the back of all the servicemen's mind. So, the Air Force didn't really have too many men kind of over in Vietnam, but Gene was very patriotic and was also ambitious. So he did write to his commanding officer that he would re-enlist and volunteer for Vietnam just and only if he could be guaranteed a position with the OSI in Saigon. So he wanted to stay with it. So in October 66, he did get confirmation. So he wouldn't be going, so this was in October, he wouldn't be going till the following August. So in January, he did re-enlist and collected a bonus for re-enlisting. And then he completed the NCO school, and another one, in 67, and he transferred with a certification of administrative supervision into a personal investigation division of the OSI. So that's a lot of information. So he's doing good, but knowing he would be gone to Saigon on the tour, he purchased a travel trailer. So he took this new van and pulled a travel trailer, and he parked it on the Novak's Ranch in Colorado. So that's this is ridiculous. And this just shows his controllingness, but he removed the tires on the travel trailer and the van so no one could move it. And so basically that's where he wanted Becky to live and stay while he was in Vietnam.
Weird.
I know.
That's strange. Did any indication why? Outside of his controlling nature?
I think the controlling nature comes with the fact that he removed the wheels. I think he moved them there so they would be with family while he was gone, but also it would be free. He's just, he's
yeah.
frugal.
Yeah. No,
So he was going to just pocket, like, basically all of his earnings. Yes, so August 1st, 1967, he left the country for Vietnam. So Becky was absolutely lost and lonely without Gene. Like, she was not happy.
Her Gene was gone.
And Gene enjoyed his OSI division. And he spent considerable time kind of learning everything, diving in. Like, he really took great pleasure with the work. Like, he could make notes on, like, other soldiers, like, clearance levels. So he really enjoyed this, like, basically making judgments on who and why they should have certain clearances. So he loved it. And he loved his living quarters. So it was really the nicest he had ever had. Like, he had a maid, he had a cook, he had a laundry delivery. Like, he was set up. So he was enjoying this. And he was given a Jeep to drive around, and he was cleared by the Vietnamese government because other people had, like, curfews there, but he had clearance. And he also had officer ranking to, like, in commissary, is that how you say it, commissary privileges?
Yeah.
So he really was loving it. So Gene's time in Saigon was reviewing, like, also one of his jobs. So he had to review the issue and try to fix it. So there was, like, kind of like a black market going on, which was being kind of helped out by the commissary privileges, because the soldiers were basically getting American goods, and then they were, they would either be selling them or trading, or giving them to, like, their little girlfriends, and then they would trade them.
Oh, boy.
So, yes. So there was a lot of American goods kind of leaking into this black market. So Gene kind of came along, and he adopted a plan to really kind of deny or limit the commissary privileges, which actually did eventually go into effect after he left Saigon, but I'm sure that these type of things probably wouldn't have made him very popular.
I would say not.
If people knew. But anyway, so he was really swelled with his own self-importance at this time. Like, he was really doing well. And he also loved reviewing, there were, like, files on illegal currency exchanges. So he did review and did in-depth notes, kind of greatly helping out the Air Force, and greatly contributed to a revision to their currency control. So he was really killing it in his position. He was really doing well.
You like this. You did this on purpose.
I know. He was really doing well at the OSI. Like, he was really doing a great job. And that's really what he did. I mean, he was very good at going in, looking at how to fix an issue, and then doing that. So he did that well. Controlling. He was very good at controlling. So meanwhile, poor Becky was dealing with Sheila, who was in her terrible twos, and of course, so she had 3 kids at this point. Sheila's 2. The boys are a little bit older. So Becky was miserable. She was dealing with her stepdad, Andy, who made it clear he didn't really, care for them being there. And then her mother, who kind of made it obvious that she was a burden on them. And I'm sure that was because, Andy wasn't thrilled. So then it became winter, and they're in a travel trailer in Colorado. So it was too cold for them to actually stay in the trailer.
Oh.
Yeah. So they actually had to stay in the main house. And,
that did not help relations.
Yes. And so the Novaks kind of made them, like, so Becky and her 3 kids were all sleeping in one bedroom of this house. And she was writing numerous letters to Gene, and she was missing him, and she was also keeping a journal. So a lot of this information does come from her journaling and such. And she did write in her journal how much she hated Andy and how much she hated being there. So there you go.
Well,
Sounds horrible.
Bad.
Yes. So Gene is just living it up. So he's in Saigon. He's living pretty cushy. I mean, everything was going well. However, the Tet Offensive of 1968 kind of ended Gene's good time. It really ended the good time and kind of really started and amped up just a lot of things in Vietnam. But basically, the Tet happened on the Lunar New Year, so it's January 30th and 31st of 1968, and it basically was about, and this is a very complicated thing, but I'm condensing this for this. So it was 4,000 North Vietnamese and Viet Cong soldiers attacked South Vietnam in surprise attacks in Saigon. And so they were hitting several cities, and they were hitting Saigon. And when this happened, Gene is just pretty used to not really doing anything all day. He's working, but yes, he's just being controlling Gene. And so he was incredibly nervous. However, he did get his gun. He did do what he needed to do, and he was described by his superiors as very cool under pressure and showed exemplary military conduct. And he really, and he finally actually had to use a weapon. So luckily, his OSI headquarters were not hit directly. So that ended up being good for him. But just things did get scary there for that situation. So kind of at the same time, so poor Becky and the kids are battling the flu. So they're in this one room bedroom at her parents' house, who are not thrilled that they're there. So they have the flu, and then they're watching these horrible images of the attacks going on. And of course, they don't know, if Gene's affected. So of course, now she's worried. And he did get a letter. So finally, a few days later, like in February, she did get a letter stating that he was okay. So she did find out that.
I wonder how long it took for a letter to get from Vietnam
back then
to Colorado.
I don't know. It doesn't say what date in February, so it was within a month.
That seems pretty quick.
That is quick. I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah. So by May, the snow in Colorado was better, and Becky could actually stay in the trailer. So by this time, and she was already a really small woman. She was frail. She was thin. She was worn out from the long winter and being sick and miserable, and just the stress of all of it. So she is just like, done. So her letters to Gene, she was a really good soldier's wife, though. She never expressed how awful it was. Like, she never said that. She would just, send him letters and everything's great, And, however, in his letters back to her, sometimes he would, chastise her. He would be, listen, he would, about stupid things, just control stuff. So he had told her exactly how to send pictures to him. And so she would send them, and then he would not be happy with how she sent them. She wouldn't stick to what he said. And so then he would chastise her about it.
What?
Just whatever he dictated. He wanted her to listen and do it exactly as he said. It doesn't say how, but yeah, he was not having it. So he would just, she would send him nice little letters, and he would be like, oh, you did a really bad job sending me these photos. Really?
It's a jerk.
I know. But I will say, on the other hand, he could, again, you never know which Gene you're going to get. So he would also send her jewelry, and he would also send her bolts of fabric. So he was kind of keeping her happy, keeping her contented. I will say, it seemed like he always wanted to gift people. Does that make sense? He wanted to buy the love. He wanted to buy the adoration. And he would do this, with his kids and everything. He wasn't that great at, how he treated people all the time. And it was I'm just going to buy it. So as his time in Vietnam was ending, he did receive the Bronze Star, which is the highest accommodation for his duty without actually having an act of heroism in combat. So it's the highest star you can get at his level or whatever. So his time really fulfilled everything that he wanted for his career. So on July 26th of 1968, Gene arrived at the Travis Air Force Base in California. So he's back. And it says literally he came in that morning, and by the end of the day, he was loaded up. He was driving straight to Colorado to get Becky and his kids. Like, he was ready to see them. So he said goodbye to the Novaks. He loaded up Becky and them, and they set up a home in kind of a bigger trailer. So they did get another trailer in Vacaville, which was outside the Travis Air Force Base. So it said he did start in August, and now we're in August of 68. He started at the OSI office in San Francisco. So, and it said that he really loved his work there. Now, Gene was kind of, like, he was not into the whole hippie thing. Does that make sense?
Like, by not into it.
Like, he did not like, just the drug scene, just the anti-American, like, he was very patriotic. He was very,
Yeah, it was totally against.
Yes. He was
all the rules and all the things that he was.
Yes, so he
liked.
Yeah, and in San Francisco at that time, of course, you still kind of had that movement going on. It wasn't as much as before, but there's definitely still that hippie going on a little bit. Definitely some of that. He wasn't into that, but he was really into his work. So he was actually investigating soldiers who were involved with groups like the GIs for Peace or other anti-war groups. So he was investigating soldiers, and he really liked that work.
Yeah, being judgmental and controlling.
Yes.
Sounds like his alley.
Yes, it was right up his alley. Yes. So he loved it. And he also, from his time in Saigon, he also really loved guns now.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So he was said to be an exceptional shot. Like, he even impressed Becky's brother. His name was Abe, who was an avid hunter and shooter, kind of grew up with that, and he stated later on that, like, Gene was excellent at shooting. So Becky now has 2 kids in school. Like, she's with her Gene. She is really happy. Like, she is really thriving. They were living pretty close to Gene's parents, so she was getting pretty close to them. She wasn't very close to Loretta. She always felt like Loretta, like, was judging her. Like, she felt like an intimidation from Loretta. Like, Loretta was just really smart, and I don't know, she just didn't feel comfortable. But she really loved Dad Griffin. Like, she was very close and would always continually correspond with Dad Griffin. So she's doing well. So Gene actually had a long commute from the trailer park in Vacaville to San Francisco. I mean, it would have been a full hour to get there and a full hour home. Yeah. So he did finally request to be put on the actual base, because that would have been closer situation. So, yeah. And he also did participate. He was really excited about actually getting to participate in an investigation which resulted in an arrest of some soldiers involved with narcotics. Yeah, so he was very excited about that, and I know, and he was one of 20 staff sergeants promoted to technical sergeants, and he did receive an E6 ranking. And I'm pretty sure that's a pretty good rank. I don't know what the ranking, I mean, this is also 1968, so I don't know if the rankings are the same now, but I think it's a very good rank from what I understand.
What's it out of?
See, I don't know, and especially in 1968, like, what was the top rank? I think it goes up to, like, I want to say a 13 or 14.
Oh, gosh.
But, I mean, that's like, I don't even know who that would be. Like, but I may be wrong about that. But anyway, so In March of 1969, Gene was doing great. Like, he was receiving adulation from his parents, because of the good work that he was doing, and he really thrived on that, and he had never really made his parents proud before, so that was awesome. Of course, Becky is completely, still in love with him, so, yeah. So the family did move on base. It said the family would live on base, so from 1969 to 1973, so the family would be in the same spot for that 4-year time period. So after his move to the actual Travis Air Force Base, he was promoted to District OT Supervisor with the OSI. So he was well known, very competent. His work ethic, like, everybody just knew him and knew his hard work. And he was a workaholic. Like, he put in the hours, which also kind of helped at home too, because he wasn't there. And he wasn't, like, during that time, I know.
It's great.
It's great when he's not home. Like, he wasn't, like, they were kind of free to just, they were on the base. They had friends, they were free to kind of not be, they weren't isolated. So it was a very good thing for them.
Sure.
For the home life. So in September of 1969, Gene did request a 4-year extension with the OSI. And also, at the same time, so his mom's not doing well. She was kind of in her final days, and she was becoming very religious, as some do. So Gene did, as moralistic and judgy as he was not comfortable with religion. However, he did allow little Gene and the other children to partake church with his mom, because, again, he always sought her approval, no matter what, and wanted to make her happy. So, I'm sorry, do you want her down?
No, she's good.
Okay. So, in April of 1970, after a lot of illness and just physically being spent, and Loretta had a heart attack in February, so Loretta did pass away in April. So, she passed away. Gene was very, very sad. However, it seemed to the family that he was really preoccupied, mainly with getting his portion of her life insurance that he had been promised.
Goodness.
I know.
All about Gene.
I know. I'm just like, oh, Gene. And it was only like between, so, he has like a sister and a brother, right? And then he had Pete, the younger brother, but I guess Pete, because he was Dad Griffin, I don't know. It just mentioned the other two. So basically, his cut of the life insurance was like $1,000, which is equivalent to $8,000 now. So it's not, it's, I'm not to say it's nothing, but it's not like thousands of dollars. I don't know. It just seems like, really, Gene? Like he literally filed this paperwork, like, right away. Like, he was very concerned about getting it, I don't know. I don't know if it's just the controlling nature. I don't know. So, anyway.
It's a lot of it.
It's a lot. It's just, ugh. So, in July of 1970, his second daughter is born, which she is the 4th child, and they do name her Loretta after his mother. So, Loretta would actually end up, and is she making me crazy licking herself? She makes me crazy.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Loretta would actually end up being the only Simmons child to break the mold. Like, she was outgoing, she was outspoken, she was incredibly bright, industrious, and she would never cower to Gene like the others did. Like, she would not.
So, Loretta is what number in the...
She is second daughter, 4th child.
Okay.
Number 4.
Sheila is the first daughter.
First daughter, second child.
Second child.
So far. Yeah, because you have little Gene first, Sheila, Billy, Loretta.
Okay.
Yeah. I know.
She ain't having it.
She's not having it. She's... Yeah, good for her. And she seems to be, like, she was named after her grandma, and it seems to be very fitting. Like, she's not going to take it. So, January 1971, Gene re-enlists for 5 more years. So, in May, He was sent to an Aerospace Defense Command NCO school at Hamilton Air Force Base in California. And it was like a 20-day thing, so he graduated from it May 20th. In June and July of 71, he took 2 consecutive leaves, totaling 39 days. This was the longest he had ever taken. So he was off, like he was on vacation for 39 days. He spent most of his time in Arkansas trying to look at purchasing the house he had lived in at Hector.
Yeah.
He wanted that house. The house wasn't for sale. He did find that out, and he was just very disappointed. But meantime, yeah. Meantime, Becky was good. The kids were good. This would be, the most normal time of their life while living at the Bay Area. And they weren't isolated, and they weren't as controlled as they would be.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So now we're in 1972. Gene was really growing impatient with the Air Force. I guess he got it in his head that he wanted an overseas tour accompaniment with his family. Like, he felt he deserved it and he was entitled to it. Sounds like Gene. And this tour would have a lot of financial perks for them, and it would probably be kind of like the Saigon thing, pretty cushy, kind of set up.
Looking for a benefit.
He's looking for the benefit. So he was passed over for a tour that came up, so he became pretty petulant and annoying. So he started writing memos to kind of all of his commanders, okay, about it. So
yeah, that's a great
because
way.
that always goes well. So the Air Force, they did say to him that they were going to send him to Greece. So he and the family, they got ready for this assignment, but in January of 72, the tour was canceled. Yeah, so he's disappointed. So in retaliation, Gene wrote a memorandum of record, so wanted it on record, spelling out his grievances, which were that, like how this was supposed to be and how it was pulled back. And then he was ineffectively transferred across the base to the 60th Aerial Division, which he instantly did not like. So he was kind of mad. So now he was okay.
He wouldn't have liked anything.
He wouldn't have been happy, yeah. He was not going to be happy anywhere. So he wrote another memo asking to get back to the OSI, which was where he had been happy. But anyway, so by May of 1962, Gene's request, I guess, made it all the way to top headquarters in Washington, D.C. about getting back into the OSI. And they stated the only possibility was for him to be transferred to Washington, D.C. Now, the Air Force awarded him, so they went ahead and awarded him the Commendation Medal for Meritorious Service with the OCI. Right after they pulled the order to Washington. So they had told him he was going to Washington, then pulled it. And then they told Gene he was being transferred to the 10th Combat Support Group in Alconbury Royal Air Force Base in England. I mean, that sounds about right.
That doesn't sound luxurious.
I know, no. So basically, he writes...
It's almost like,
and
they get out of our hair.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, very much so.
We're sorry. Here's an award.
We're going to award you.
Go to England. It just doesn't seem like a fun place to live to me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Maybe it is. Maybe
I don't know.
Somebody listening has lived there and would say it was awesome.
Yeah. Let us know if you've lived in Alconbury. I mean, because this is basically a little village.
How do you spell that?
Alconbury.
Oh, okay.
Alconbury. So basically, his letter writing just ended his time with the OSI. So he would never be back.
Got him let go. Huh?
Got him let go. So
a problem getting out of here.
Yep, we're gonna transfer him to England.
We're gonna send him.
Yeah.
Oh.
So this was. Did you look at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
how did it?
Well,
What do you
I'll
think?
just see some
I mean,
things,
it's probably very quaint and beautiful.
Yeah,
I want to go to London.
Maybe.
I do want to go. You know how I feel about the royals.
Does it all look kind of drab?
I think it's a lot of grayness, isn't it, England? I don't know if they see the sun a lot.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of rain.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Phonus, England people. Okay, so this was, he's not going to get sent to England until February of 73. So this is May of 62. He was very upset about his career, but now, because his career's kind of, gone to pot, he's not focusing on it as much. So now he's turning his attention to the family. So he actually, and he's kind of a weird man. Like, he becomes incredibly doting during this period and loving. Like, with them, he takes them to Disneyland. He does all the things with the family. At Christmas, they celebrated really big with his dad Griffin and brother Pete, because his mom's gone, and he is very much about Christmas, which we'll get into. But yeah. So March of 1973, he's now in England. He is 34 years old, and it's said that he looks more like he's 44, which I take offense to, because I feel like I don't look. I don't know. Maybe I do. Whatever.
What do you mean? I'm confused.
He's saying. Basically, they're saying that Gene looks 10 years older than he is. He's really only 34, but he looks old. He had gained weight. Like, he was 30 pounds overweight. That hurts too. He did have, his hair was thinning and receding. Like, he just wasn't looking his old self. His old. He was in photo pamphlets. He was like
they acted like he
the
was,
Navy man.
An Adonis.
I know, and evidently now he looks like he ate Adonis. So, ooh, that hurts. I don't care about Gene. Anyway.
No, I didn't say that from a place.
I know. It did say. He's just not looking the way he did. So that's how they say it. At his new position in England, Gene was in charge of all the rationed goods, and evidently this unit was like an absolute mess before he got there. And
How does he keep getting in control of things?
He has an E6 ranking, and he's done all these schools. I will say his paperwork on paper with them, and even I have received the case file from the Arkansas State Police, but he had an excellent file. He really did. Like everything was just like, this dude takes care of business. And he really, it'll say this later, like, he makes his superiors look good.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. He does such a good job that he makes them look good. So yeah. So he literally goes in, yeah, and I said that. He whips it all into shape. Like, he comes in, he cleans it all up. And it got to the point where he was rationing a little too much. Like, he was told to ease up, because evidently he was trying to ration the oil for these trucks that had to run. So
he didn't think they needed as much as they did.
Yeah, he's like, no, you don't need that. And they were like, yes, we do. And he was.
Sounds like Gene.
It sounds like Gene. It sounds like how he did Becky.
That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
You need more than this, but I know better. Mm-hmm. And I really don't. Because I think I know everything.
Yep. That's exactly it. So he's just being Gene, doing Gene things. But yeah, he did get it up to par, though, because evidently it had been such a mess that people, like the superiors, were hearing about it. And yeah, that was not good. So on July 15th of 1973, Gene and Becky had their 5th child, a boy named Edward, who they would call Eddie. So note, Gene and Billy and Eddie all have the same birthday, July 15th.
Wow.
I told you that would come up again. Isn't that crazy? That's very...
a friend with the July 15th birthday.
Really? That is interesting. Is it the same as his parents?
I don't know. I can ask him.
Yeah, ask. So Eddie was born on the base, like in the U.S., like the Air Force hospital on base. So during this time, Gene found a home for them to rent that was 4 miles away from everyone else in this rural England village. It was very tough to kind of get away from people, but he did find a little remote little place to rent because he refused to live on base. Like, he did not want to socialize with everybody, he did not want to be close to people. Yeah. So he had grown pretty disenchanted during this time being sent to England, so he really only wanted to be around his family and nobody else. So Becky, who had never driven a car, she did ask Jean to help her learn and get her license. And there was like a nice, like, Becky is still, like, she is very sociable. She is very likable. Like, she's making friends kind of wherever she goes. And I think she had met a lady and she's like, oh, I'll help you drive, you know. And Becky had to ask permission from Jean. And Jean's like, well, if you're going to learn, I'm going to drive you, but I'm not happy about it. Like, he was very controlling about it. He didn't want her to be able to drive. He enjoyed her being dependent. So he was teaching her, but not happily. So literally while he was teaching her to drive, he lost his temper with her and he hit her.
Oh.
Like, while she was driving, like, evidently he just smacked her. And he basically told her it was her fault that he had to discipline her. Yes. Discipline her. Like a child. So at this point, he had been pretty verbally, no. I mean, he had been verbally abusive, psychologically abusive with, you know, the degrading stuff, but now he's actually hit her.
What if D had to teach you how to drive? How would that go?
Like, if he had to teach me, that would not go well. I don't know. My brother-in-law...
From your driving standpoint or his teaching standpoint?
No, just from both, I think, because I've, you know... both probably. Because sometimes our communication skills with each other.
Driving's been in question previously, yes?
By whom?
Too close.
I drive excellent. I'm all over the place. In a good way. Hey, your driving has been questioned.
By whom?
I don't know. But you guys drive fast.
That doesn't mean it's
you guys drive fast. The LaForces are fast.
We're notorious.
Yes, notorious.
Sure, fast drivers.
I'm like, sometimes I'm like, Daryl, can you drive like a LaForce? Because we got to get there.
Oh, that's funny.
Like, he'll be poking along. I'm like,
don't tell me the other occasions you reference.
What?
Our family.
Driving fast. Okay, where are we? Okay, Becky. So yeah, he hit her. So the children the children aren't stupid. They live in the house. They know what goes on. So evidently this was happening, and the children knew what was happening behind closed doors. But to all accounts, to like society and people like around them, the family was perceived as being clean, neat, and nice. And of course, all of this is Becky's doing. So on the outside, this family isn't at this point being seen as like, you know, too weird. So in England, even though Gene was an abusive piece of trash, yes, to Becky, he did take a lot of family trips. Like, he really wanted to give the family the European experience. So they took several trips to London. They went into France. They visited Germany and Switzerland, like they did, just like when he took them to Disneyland. It's like he will take a lot of pictures. Like, he was always photographing, like, these things. Yeah, it is interesting. So, a little side note. So, Gene's daughter, Sheila, had always been his favorite. He would not hide it, but kind of during this time frame, Becky was noticing that Gene was kind of unusually touchy-feely with Sheila. He was doting on her. He spoilt her more than the other children, more than Loretta. Like, he definitely, like, I think he called Sheila, like, his little angel or something, or little princess. Like, it was obvious. It was obvious to the family. So in December of 1975, Gene received orders for the SAMSO Observatory in Cloudcroft, New Mexico, and that stands for the Space and Missile Systems Operation. Now the site is just known as Cloudcroft Observatory, and it's still there. This was just kind of a time frame when the Air Force was in control of it. So he was going to be put, kind of basically, the Air Force was going to, put him out there, and he could, do his typical clerical cleanings.
Stay out of the way.
And stay out of the way. So,
what year was this?
And this was in 75.
75.
So we were in 75. And we started in 40. So he is 35 at this point. So this was really exciting for Gene. He just felt like this move was just leading him closer and closer to his ultimate dream of retiring to Arkansas. Dream. That's the goal. So in 1976, Gene, who's 35 years old, he did make his start at the observatory. He was pretty happy. He was very happy because he got like top secret clearance because of this. And Gene was very fascinated with all the computers and high-tech electronic equipment there. So he was excited about this new adventure. So, and he gets to leave England. So it didn't really say how he liked it there, but I don't think he loved it. So Gene at the time, he really did have a spotless record. He did have the Distinguished Service in Vietnam. He had his Bronze Star. He had all his other awards. Again, he's described in his file by superiors as head and shoulders above all his other peers. Like his work and efficiency, like always made his superiors look good. So they loved him, especially on paper. Huh?
Good guy to have one.
Yeah. So he did take care of business. So as long as he was kind of happy about it and not writing letters around. So Gene, on the other hand, I don't know why. Wait just a second. Sorry. I missed this spot. Sorry. Okay, so during this time, it does note, so it's 1976. Becky was still very pretty. Like, she was a very pretty lady.
Still.
I know. I mean, it's tough when you're in your.
We got her while she was still pretty.
We got her while she was. Yeah, she's still very pretty. It said she was 5'1". She was very petite. I mean, she literally. Yeah, she was very tiny. I mean, she had 5 kids, and she was still a very petite person, like slim. She had dark long hair, high cheekbones, and olive tone skin. Like, she was a very pretty lady. I know. And Gene, on the other hand, it does describe him. So he was not. He was heavy. He's
not pretty.
He's not so pretty anymore. He was pretty.
Maybe.
He was coarse. It said he really loved beer and snacks, and he just really indulged.
I like snacks and beer.
I like snacks and beer. I don't like
Most
any of that.
The, fitness influencers. That's the top 2 things.
Snacks and beer that are like bad, I guess, for people or people have problems with.
Facetious,
okay.
Yes,
okay.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't do holiday pies either. So anyway, and
especially
of course,
if you have a still pretty wife, that would be.
I would, but this is it's leading into something here.
Can't wait.
I know you can't wait. And he did work at a desk job. He wasn't active.
Well, that's difficult.
Now, yes, and Becky still at that time was very much devoted to Gene. Like she's still after all of this,
and still devoted to him.
Yes, and she still was proud of him for supporting him. I mean, she would say that over and I know, bless her heart, over and over. I don't. Yeah, I really. It's a confidence problem on Becky's part. So that's all I can say. During this time, they did go and visit the Novaks on the ranch, and Becky's sister Edith was out there, and May and Edith kind of noticed that Gene treated Sheila kind of better than he treated Becky. Like, so when they pulled up, this is just a weird thing noted. When they pull up in their van or whatever they were driving, like, Sheila was up front with Gene, and Becky would be back in the back with the children.
Oh.
And Sheila was 13 at this time, so no longer a little girl. Yeah, it was kind of weird. So of course, Becky's sister is like, and mom is like, "What's up with that?" And Becky was like,
maybe, I don't know.
Speculation.
Now
Becky.
Back in that time.
Yeah. Now Becky.
Kids probably sat back, right?
Yes, the kids were in the back. And Becky just. Yeah, Becky just said that she sat in back to be closer to the kids.
But
they had
there's a good
5.
chance, though, her lack of confidence, she was just saying that.
Yes, she was just making it sound normal because, well, I truly think he just was like, this is how it is and this is normal. And she goes with whatever Gene says. Whatever Gene says goes. That's what happens, unfortunately. Gene.
She didn't want to get disciplined again, it sounds like.
Yeah, and she was being disciplined. Gene loved visiting the ranch. Like, he loved everything about the ranch. He loved the acreage, the animals. Like, they didn't really like him too much, but the family, but he liked it out there. Like, he was, of course, that's what he wanted. He wanted that setup. So,
that's what he's trying to get back to.
Yeah.
His dream.
Yeah. So Gene did find a little spot that kind of fit his liking finally, because when they first moved to New Mexico, they had to rent like a little house in a neighborhood, and he hated that. But he did find a 3-acre plot of land with a home in the mountains, and he wanted his kids to grow up like outside of the city. He wanted them, like, he felt like if they grew up in the city or around tons of people, that they wouldn't be moral.
Okay.
Because he's the epitome of that. So, and Cloudcroft really did have a very good school system, so he liked that. So he did find this place to set the family up. So, of course, Gene is still Gening, and he's being totally controlling, and he's very hard on little Gene, who by this time is 15 or 16. So they don't even have a phone in the house. Like, it's just so, like, that, I don't even understand that. Like, how do you live without a phone? I don't get it. I mean,
like, we always had a phone.
Yeah, you always had. Some people even had, like, their own private line in the 80s. Like, this would have been the 70s, right?
Yeah.
What year are we in?
70s.
Yeah.
Late 70s.
Okay, so we're in the 70s. But, like, so you had everybody had a phone in their home. But, yeah, he didn't. So yeah, the kids really moving out to this situation, they had no social life. They only were allowed to go to school. And Gene came up with, like, all of these weird things he wanted done on the property, like building walls and all kinds of things. So he always had the kids working, like the little kids.
Sure.
Like, yeah, they were...
He's in charge.
Yeah, he's in charge. So they were always doing some kind of home improvement things for Gene. Yes. Weird. So, kind of on the flip side of things, so Gene did make a huge production of holidays. Like, he loved Christmas. He would celebrate with a lot of effort. He would buy the kids gifts. And so Christmas was actually kind of like a really special time for the Simmons that everybody looked forward to because, their normal day-to-day was not the greatest with crazy, Gene and such, and their just isolation. So by the end of 1976, Becky now had her 6th child, which was a girl named Marianne. So now we've got number 6. So during this time, Gene, who, again, always been a non-smoker, he's very worried about pollutants in the air, But he's also really concerned about water pollutants. Like this would kind of be a phobia from Dad Griffin as well. So he kind of became manic, and he would definitely post like no smoking signs like everywhere again. So also it's noted, so in 1977, Gene's income tax return showed a meager $11,346 for the year. And for the time even, and having 8 people in his household, like this was not a lot. Like this was very small income to have to live on. So they definitely had financial issues during this time. And really, I did look it up. So the average income in the state in New Mexico in that time for a normal size family was 14 to 15,000 a year. So they were quite a bit below the normal, and so that was a struggle. Also, during this time, Gene did get a subscription to newspapers in Russellville. So he started to get these papers. He would look at the real estate, and he would look at the news stories. Like he just began to daydream about living in that area. So that was what he was after. So in 1978, Gene got mad at Becky for some ridiculous reason. Like it didn't even say why. And he literally hit her in front of the children. This was the first time that had happened. And little Gene, who is now like a senior in high school, so he stood up for his mother, of course, and screamed at Gene. This is probably the first time he had ever done that. So Gene beat him up. Yeah. And little Gene left the house. Kind of a few days later, they did find out, they got word from the family that he had hitchhiked out to Colorado to Becky's family. And Becky talked him into finally returning. But and he did, because he loved his mother, because he didn't want to leave her. Like, he did return. But there was always like a huge resentment on both the Gene side. Like, they did not like or trust each other at all. So during this time, the Air Force actually pulled out of the observatory. So Gene was transferred in 1978 to the Holloman Air Force Base due to the closure. They did keep him at the observatory the longest out of all the workers, just because of his work ethic and efficiency. But they just closed down their involvement there.
Probably more like he was cheap.
Out of the way.
They didn't pay him a lot, and he did a lot.
Yeah, that too.
And he was out of the way.
Yeah.
He's a problem child.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he is.
Did you ever watch that movie, Problem Child?
Yes.
The red-haired boy?
Yeah. Yes.
What was the dad in that? He was
John Ritter?
John Ritter. Sorry.
Oh, no. I'm King.
Yeah,
that's Did you see The Problem Child, too?
Yeah. That's when we went to the fair?
Yeah. I liked those movies. I don't know why.
That's kind of weird. That kid was weird. I wonder what he's doing today.
He was creepy. He was creepy looking.
Probably still creepy.
He's probably.
Maybe. Let's look him up.
I wonder if he had real red hair. Like, if that red hair was real.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
It was definitely creepy. Okay, so... Ooh. Okay. So, Gene was transferred. So, at this time, even though Gene was controlling and the kiddos were isolated, so most of the kids were doing okay. Loretta was really the only one with excellent grades, but little Gene, who, is a senior, he was very active in school, and he actually began the first chess club at school. And he was evidently excellent at playing chess. That was like his thing. So Becky got pregnant again in the fall of 1978. So she gave birth the following June to another little girl whose name was Rebecca Simmons, and I think they called her Little Becky, I believe. I guess they like that, because they have Little Gene, and I think that's right. So the doctors, whenever I guess something happened when she had Becky, and the doctors urged Big Becky, to get her tubes tied. They stated that if she didn't, and if she got pregnant again, like, she would not make it. I'm gonna hurt you. And she, yeah, thank you. And she would basically, if she got pregnant again, it would be bad for her health and the baby's health. So they advised her she had to get her tubes tied.
Okay.
Now, Gene
didn't like this. He's not in control. He's
not in control. He was furious.
Oh boy.
Like,
did she do it without him knowing?
No, she begged. I mean, she implored it. She's like, Gene, for my health. Like,
my doctor said this.
Yes, and so she did. He never forgave her.
Oh my gosh.
Never.
This guy's a psycho.
I know.
We knew that, but it's getting worse.
It's getting worse. He's getting, like, you can tell, like, it's amping up. Sure. So by November of 1979, like on the 30th, Gene was officially discharged from the Air Force, so he was fully retired as a master sergeant by this time. So this is what he had kind of been after.
Okay. I'm confused.
Yeah.
So it sounds like he's done really well. That's what we
Work-wise.
said.
Yes.
But like he's not making even median income for his position, or really for a family. Maybe it's just for a family of that size. I don't know. I feel like there's a disconnect between his actual income and maybe how well he thought he was doing.
Yes.
Says he's doing, or
I think because of his. So here's my thing. So typically these servicemen, I mean, unless you're really high up, like, you don't make a tons of money, but typically you have certain perks. You get housing. You get different things. So he was not, I don't think Gene was very wise with his money, and because he wanted.
What was he doing with it? I thought he was like a miser. Yeah. Almost, it sounded like.
But because of his controllingness, like, he didn't take advantage of, like, the housing on base provided. Like, he's moving his family and buying this land that really. He kind of makes some bad decisions with what he thinks he needs or wants. Because he could have just. I mean, he's got like 6 kids now, and he's just not taking advantage of the perks.
6 kids, so many.
That's a lot of children.
8 people.
That's a lot to feed and
8.
clothe. I can't even imagine. I mean, that's a lot. So.
You'd have to make more than you made tonight.
What? Food?
You didn't cook enough for 8.
I cooked a lot, actually. I don't know. I didn't make it. Yeah, you'd have to make like I don't even know how you cook for 8. Like, ugh, it's crazy. So he is retired. Kind of side note. So the family didn't really mix in, obviously, with the Cloudcroft community because of, Gene didn't want them to. But
it's a hard community to break.
Yeah, but evidently the principal kind of lived out kind of close to where they lived, and he did say later that he found Gene incredibly weird, but the rest of the family nice. And this seems to be the consensus with people that met Gene. Like, that guy's weird. Like, he was coming off crazy. So little Gene does graduate from high school, and he's thinking that he's going to go on to college and study journalism. That's kind of his plan, and he's going to get out of the house. Another side note, Big Gene loves motorcycles. He loves to drive recklessly. And again, he doesn't have any money, but he was out and about buying motorcycles, and he collected 4 traffic citations in just a matter of 2 months for driving recklessly and fast. So, just a little tidbit.
Okay.
We're winding down, Matthew.
I like it.
Well,
how far are we in?
We're getting in.
2 hours in?
Yes, we're 2 hours and 33 minutes.
2.5.
I'm going to edit the crap out of this, but
How long?
I'm going to try to get it to 2 hours, but I knew it would be long. It's just a lot of information. Okay, and this one's
a look. Say that.
Yeah.
I just don't want.
Okay, yeah, that's good. And it's good. You're doing great. You're doing a great job. Okay. This is going to be...
If that matters.
This is going to be where it gets gross, okay?
Oh.
I'm just saying.
Gosh.
I know.
I'm afraid of what's happening. He messes with Sheila, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I know.
I've been afraid of that since you said that.
I know. So, it's going to happen.
Oh.
Okay. Okay, so Sheila Marie at this time, let me make sure I didn't. That's what he called her. No, okay. So Sheila Marie, we're going to kind of discuss her. So she turned out to be really lovely. Like, honestly, when you look at pictures, like, she really did look exactly like Becky, like her mother. Like, she just looked like her mother.
Who was still pretty.
Yes. She just couldn't have any more children. Yes. According to the book. We'll find some pictures. So she had always been her father's favorite. We kind of talked about this. This had caused a very weird jealousy with Becky and weird kind of, I don't know, just a vibe, like just, vibe. So especially as Sheila has kind of matured and, hit puberty and such, just kind of made Becky feel uncomfortable with the attention that Gene would show Sheila. So freaking I know, it is. So Loretta was always, Loretta's very with it. She's said to be the most, smart. Like, she's the smartest one out of the kids, and she was always kind of intuitive, I think. So she's always noticed this attention.
This is daughter too.
Yes, Loretta's daughter too, and she's little. She's quite a bit younger than Sheila. So, but she would notice it. She didn't like it because, Sheila would always get better presents, better this, better that, and of course, just kind of as a jealousy thing. But kind of as Loretta was getting older, it was, she's aware. Like, she's aware that this is a weird behavior.
Sure, something's not right.
Something's not right. And although Becky
is a freak show.
Yes, like, it's just kind of like a weird vibe. And Becky, honestly, is noticing some weirdness, but she's also just pushing it out of her mind, because she
to be married to a
weirdo. Well, that's like, you don't want to think that about someone that you love, or thinking that there's something weird about the way he feels about Sheila. Like, she is not wanting to think that. She is wanting to just push that away. She has absolutely no clue what's going to transpire, so anywho, so although the family, never seems to have any money, they never have enough, he's always, they don't even have a phone, but
he's just been hoarding it.
I don't know what he's been doing. He just doesn't make a whole lot, but of course he buys his property and he buys motorcycles, but he decides in July of 1980, so, he's retired. He is not working at this time, and he decides that he's going to take Sheila on, I guess this would have been right before her senior year, so he's going to take her on a little trip, and it's just going to be a little weekend trip, allegedly because she's into coin collecting, so they were going to drive into California for this coin collection show or something, and they were going to go just the two of them, and Sheila is almost 17 at this time, she would be turning 17, so just to be clear, trigger warning, this is awful and disgusting, Gene is the worst kind of human, and of course I'm not going to dive into any particulars or anything like that, but Gene does rent a car, so he kind of takes his beat up whatever van, and he decides to rent a nice car for the trip. He literally has kind of Sheila snuggled up against him, which isn't, that's not weird for her. He's basically been grooming her for a long time. He would have her sit up front. He really treated her more like a girlfriend or whatever, something weird than a daughter, like that was not weird to her. So he was being and he always has been, very affectionate, very doting. He's constantly talking to her about how special she is and calling her his little princess, and, that, like, she's just better than everybody, very special to him. Like, he just doting on her and just saying how much he loves her. So on this trip, they were going to stay overnight in a hotel, and at the hotel, he does tell her, like, how much he loves her, and that now she is a woman, and that, he loves her so much and she loves him so much that this is what people do. So he rapes his 17-year-old daughter that night and told her that there was nothing wrong with it, that this is what people do. And she has zero clue. Like, she has been groomed. She is, she has no clue how wrong this is. Like, she just knew it felt weird, the whole situation, but she had no clue. Does that make sense? Like, and again, I know.
I know. I'm definitely, don't hear me disagreeing with that.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine that being somebody's reality. It's so awful.
That is so awful. And really just the fact that he did groom her for all those years, like years and years of this, like being touchy-feely and just all of it, like just all of it. So he just kind of, it's like, I don't even get it. I don't understand it. But they did return home from the trip, kind of course, no one knows anything. Like, Becky was kind of a little, like, weird about the trip, but she had no clue. She had no clue. So Sheila had really always been an below average student. Like, she was not very good at school, but she does start her senior year, and she is thriving. Like, all of a sudden, she is coming out of her shell socially. She receives A's and B's instead of, she was getting D's and F's. I know. She was elected to a class office. Like, all of a sudden, she's doing well. And I don't know, the book, kind of talks about, like, they have no idea the psychology behind this. You would, some people, if they're, like, if that happens to them, they go the opposite way. So, I don't know. Who knows? But, yeah, so she is doing really well. So Gene would continue to assault Sheila 2 more times this fall. So basically he would just, like, pick her up from school and take her somewhere or something like that. Yeah. She finally told Gene, she was like, this doesn't, she was like, I don't like this. She kind of threw it off. Like, she did not want any of this. She had no clue how to keep this from happening. She's just totally under his control. And I think she kind of told him, like, I don't want anyone to find out. You need to, like, we need to not do this. So he did back off. So by March 1981, Sheila knew she was pregnant.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh.
She's pregnant.
Come on.
So this is spring. She's starting to kind of show a little bit, I guess. Like, not huge, but her prom happens. She doesn't have a prom date, but Gene makes her go. He fixes her all up. He takes pictures of her. And I think he drops her off at the prom. Like, he drops her off. In the meantime, he comes home and sits Becky down and Billy down. So this is like his, other boy. Little Gene has moved out, okay?
Right,
he's gone. And he sits them down and he tells them that Sheila's pregnant. And he doesn't deny the baby was his. He doesn't really say anything about who the father is. Of course, they're like putting
Just
2 and 2 together. They're shocked. Yeah, they're like, they're in shock, and then they're putting 2 and 2 together. And all he's saying is that Sheila really needs our support right now, and this baby is going to be a part of our family. And basically, and he's not denying that it's just kind of like, she's pregnant, just kind of like, this is the way it is. And Becky, of course, is realizing all of her fears and thoughts were right. So she took to the bed. Like, she was just, of course, I don't even know, what do you even do? Like, she is disgusted. So she is just wanting.
I'm not going to question her, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, she is just done.
So you would be depressed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I hate to say it, like, Sheila's groomed and Becky's groomed. And it's like, Becky feels like she has no options. Like, and they have no phone. I'm like, oh my gosh.
She's been in charge and in control the whole time.
The whole time.
She doesn't even know how to operate.
Yeah. She doesn't. Like you said, she can barely drive. Like, she's... Yeah. So she is just done. Because this is still her Gene. Like, on top of everything.
Heartbroken.
Yeah,
heartbroken she must be.
It's like disgusting, and of course she loves her daughter.
Naturally.
And of course she's sickened for her daughter. It's just, ugh.
Too many emotions for one person to deal with.
It's just so gross. So terrible. So this is, ugh. So Gene does threaten Becky that so this is what he's also doing to Becky, and of course he's doing this to Sheila as well, like, if you tell anyone, they're going to come and take all of the kids away from us. So that's how he's keeping everybody in check. Like,
you'll lose everything.
Yes.
If you don't cover for me.
Yeah. Manipulative.
Sure.
Yeah. So, Becky, she does tell Little Gene. So, again, he's out on his own, and he, of course, loathes his father even more now, finding this out. He's just disgusted and sickened and like them all. So, he tells a friend, and the friend urges him to call the county social services, which they live in Otero County of New Mexico. So, after sitting on this kind of for a few days, because he's like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what to do. So, after he kind of sits on it, he does, in April, so I guess this happened in March. In April, he does call the social services and tells them. And then he kind of follows it up with some anonymous calls, just to kind of, I guess so they can't, like, pin it to him.
Right.
So,
throw him off a little bit.
Yes. He didn't really want it traced back to him.
Well, no.
And he did tell others. Like, I think he told others in his family, other people that he knew. Like, he wasn't keeping it to himself. So, so in the community, people were starting to talk. Like, obviously, Sheila's been going to school. She's showing.
Yeah.
People.
At minimum.
Yeah.
She's only pregnant.
Yeah.
Not to mention.
Yeah, with who? So it's like, ugh. And so people are talking. It's getting out. So this is crazy. A social worker.
We're not even crazy yet.
I know. This is just. This is bad.
I gotta tell you.
What?
I looked this up.
Did you?
While we were talking.
Oh yeah.
This is insane. You can't even make this up.
You really can't. And I do believe, and I guess this is why true crime is so, I don't know, infatuating. It's just.
I guess because it's so real.
It's so real, and it is worse than fiction. It is worse. And then you're like, this really happened. Like,
this is awful.
This happened in our state. Like, how did this even happen?
Ridiculous.
Ugh, this
all right,
is gross. So, a social worker, opens the case. They interrogate Sheila. She tells the truth.
Good.
Yeah, she tells the truth. Gene tells the truth. So here's the thing. He really doesn't think there's anything wrong with it.
So.
He just thinks it's their family. In fact, he's like, this is my family business. This is our business. And this is the way it is. Like, he doesn't think there's anything wrong. He has put this in his head that this is okay.
The delusion. I don't understand.
I mean, especially for a guy that is
and
so
why does it just happen?
by the
Like,
book.
why do some people are just delusional? Is there? I mean, I don't know if we ever know what can cause that, but that's
I don't
crazy.
know. It is crazy.
I don't mean that. It's just so hard to comprehend.
It is. Yeah, this one's tough for me. Like, I'm like, ugh, all of this is just awful.
You know, like, there's like times I feel like I am very grounded, connected to my reality, to what's happening. But you have to think, like, Gene felt that way. He felt that. He was not, right?
He was so not.
He was not.
But he thought he
felt
was.
that. So he and I felt. We both feel that we are connected and in control and right and just and doing what's okay. I assume. I only assume that's the case. It's just amazing and
that people can be that way.
To think that somebody so vile and wrong can feel so justified. Correct. Right.
Yeah. Because he's doing what Gene wants to do, and he has justified
and that's okay.
it. Because his way's always right. Like, he's always right. Ugh, Gene.
Not my Gene.
I don't know, Gene. So the social worker, talks to everybody. Yes. The social worker meets with the prosecutor, and they want all of the family to go to counseling. Tip of the iceberg here. So May 1st, and kind of a little side note, they do start counseling in May of 81 at the Air Force Base at Holloman. Now, Gene was retired. I mean, he was out, but he had actually the same month, which is really weird, he had gone back to work at Holloman as a civilian, working as a file clerk. So he was back to work, and this is where they did the counseling. And also, so people everywhere they're catching wind. So even people he worked with were finding out about this and just, of course, kind of steering clear of him and just disgusted, of course.
Tons of side-eye.
Just tons of side-eye. Like, can you imagine? Like, I wouldn't want to be near this man. Like, it would just make me physically sick to be near him without wanting to, like, punch him or something. Ugh. So gross. It's just gross.
Not fastidious.
Yeah, it's not fastidious. Yeah, fastidiously gross. So after it became clear to the after it became clear the prosecutor was going to seek charges, so Gene did get an attorney with the firm Hubbard and Hubbard, and they all stopped counseling and they stopped communicating with the social services.
Wait, time out.
Yeah.
Where were we again? In America, where are we living?
We're living in New Mexico, where
so he's hired a firm.
He has hired an attorney because he can tell the prosecutors
Sorry, the Hubbard name.
Oh, Hubbard and Hubbard,
just threw me for a minute.
Sorry.
I'm just making sure where we were.
Yeah, that's the name of the firm he hired. So social services I guess he did this because social services had told the Simmons that they wanted all the girl children removed from the home, and they wanted Gene and Becky to continue counseling. So I think that's why they were like, no. Gene said, no.
No.
Of course, everyone else doesn't have a voice. So June 17th of 1981, Sheila gives birth to her and Gene's daughter, Sylvia Gale Simmons. So a little side note here, because of this situation and everyone in town knowing about the pregnancy and who the father was, so the kind principal that kind of lived near them, he was very kind to Sheila and allowed her to still graduate. Like, he would bring her assignments back and forth. Like, he would just courier them. So she didn't actually have to go to school. And so she was able to graduate. So that was just a little tidbit. I mean, it's just a niceness, but it's just showing that it's just Gene. Like, he's just awful. Ugh. So a deputy farmer, that's their name, like it's not a farmer. Anyway, a deputy named Farmer, and it's not clear, but it appears to be a deputy from the prosecutor's office that sent them to work on the case. So by July, it was really obvious to Gene that everything was closing in. So he goes and gets a second mortgage on his property for $14,000, like he gets the cash. So he packs up, he leaves New Mexico, and he takes the younger kids with him. So by August 6th of 1981, he moves in to a rent home in Ward, Arkansas. And and he makes Becky stay behind with Billy, and I think Sheila. I think he just took the little girls. And I'll tell you why he did that. But anyway, he makes the older people, I think Loretta. No, I think it was Becky, Billy, and Loretta that stay behind and have to pack everything up. And when Officer Farmer shows up at the Cloudcroft property that they own with an arrest warrant on August 10th, Gene is gone. Like he's already in Arkansas. So this is where we're leaving. This is part 1. Part 2 is going to cover the time frame of 1981 to the end, the what happened in 87, and then the aftermath. So it's just a lot, guys. It's just a lot. Matthew, I'm sorry. So yeah, so that's it.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Yeah. We love you guys. Thank you for listening. Bye.